What's up, crew? Big C90210 here. Today, in this 7 Days to Die micro video, I'm going to be explaining what Putty is, what the fuck it is, why you need it, why was it there and it's not there now, and do you still need it? So, in short, what the fuck is Putty? Putty is a client for connecting to other machines via certain protocols. Sure. You can download Putty by typing Putty into Google and then going to the Putty download page and downloading the version that is right for you. Most of the time, it will be this one here, which is putty.exe. Once you've downloaded Putty, you can put it wherever you want. I mean, I've got it, just as an example, I'm going to put a copy of it in my dedicated server folder, just so it sits with the dedicated server. In old versions of 7 Days to Die, now this is the next thing, in old versions of 7 Days to Die, when you would run the start dedicated file, it would look for Putty, but since Alpha 11, I believe, it doesn't do that anymore. Okay, there's no mention of Putty in here. So, the whole point of Putty is that you can use it to connect to your server and send or receive basic commands and information from your server. So let me demonstrate, okay? Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start my dedicated server. Okay? So I'm just going to press a key. Server is running in the background. You can close this window. You can check this in Task Manager to see if the server process is really running. Press any key to continue. So, if we look in Task Manager, sure enough, it's not lying. We can see our dedicated server is running. Okay? Now, if we have a look in our server config file, we will see that under property name, we have Telnet enabled. It's true. Telnet port is this. And Telnet password is this. Okay? So what Putty is, what Putty can be a Telnet client. So what we can do is we can open up Putty. It's over here. This is where you put in your connection information. So what we can say is we can say connect a local host. And we can see here that it's port 8084. 8084. Now, Putty supports a bunch of different types of connections. So we're looking for a one called Telnet. Okay, so if this was a remote server, you would put the IP address in. But as I'm hosting this locally on this machine, I'm just putting in localhost. So if this was hosted on gameservers.com or some shit like that, you put in like fucking 10.1 blah blah. That's not an IP address. Something like that, okay? But if you're running Putty on the same machine that is hosting the server, you can just type in localhost. So I'm going to press open. So what we're doing is we're opening a Telnet session on localhost on port 8084. And that is because 8084 is what's specified in my server admin file. Well, hey, so it's now asking me for passwords. So if I put in blah, 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 and I press enter, it says password's wrong. So obviously we need to put in our Telnet password, which is boobs123. So now what we've just done is, in the most basic form, we've connected to our server, we've authenticated using our password, and we have got some basic info back from it. Okay? So you can say press help to get a list of all commands, press exit. So what we can do now is we can type help. And then holy shit, we've got commands, lots of commands. So you can kick players, you can ban players, you could type say, and what that would do is, so if you typed in something like say hello, it would type hello to everybody in the game. So what this is as we've just discovered, this is a very basic way of sending messages to the server and obviously retrieving information from the server. So now, if you imagine something like Frontrunner Text Server Manager, when it loads up, all these Server Manager tools are clients with these commands already typed in. So when we go to, say, server settings, and we try to connect via Telnet on 8084 and localhost, and we put our password in, it's exactly the same thing as typing it in here. So if you're having problems trying to connect with Frontrunner Text Server Manager, as an example, or anybody else's server manager, try using Telnet first. Here's an example. If you put the Telnet information in incorrectly into Putty, this is what you get. So say we put in localhost. If we put in localhost and we were trying to connect on Telnet on the wrong port, say 8085 instead of 8084, what will happen is you'll get this window, hey, connection refused. Has anybody had that message before? I bet you have. So sometimes it takes quite a while for you to get that message. And you just get a window like this, but it's fairly obvious that if you don't get a response, if you don't get the enter password thing, then something in your details is wrong. If you know for 100% and you've got this server config open and you know it's 8084 and you know Telnet's enabled, what you might have to do is you might have to stop the process and restart the process again. And then that will enable you to retry the Putty connection. So, in short, is Putty needed? No. Is Putty helpful? Yes. Is it free? Yes. Should you be using it? Well, it's entirely up to you. It's a handy little thing to do, and if you're using Telnet connections, which a lot of people do prefer over the web connections, then it's the first step for you to learn how to do it properly. Well, how to do it yourself, really. And to be honest, if you experience any issues with any of the server manager tools, then Putty is a good tool to help you work out whether it's an issue with the server manager tool or whether it's an issue with your server itself. If it is an issue with your server itself, then either restart the process via ending it via task manager or anything else, and double check your settings in here to make sure Telnet's enabled. If you're connecting to a remote server, and you know on the remote server the port 8084 is open, and you still can't connect to it via Putty, then it means that there's a firewall or routing issue at the remote server end. So just as an example, if you are trying to connect to gameservers.com and you know that in your config file you've got it set to 8084, and in Putty you're putting it in Putty you're inserting the correct information. So just imagine this is your gameservers.com IP address. You know fine well that this works, but when you still press this, nothing happens. Then you need to get in contact with whoever's providing your game, and you need to open this. You need to get them to open this port, so that when you connect to game servers, that this port takes you to your server. Anyway, guys, that's enough for this video, but at least now you know exactly what Putty is and why it used to be in 7 days, because the 7 days crew used to use it, but now they don't need to. And it's an extra tool for you as a server owner to have in your toolkit. I've been Xeneno210, and I shall see you guys next time.